Hello and welcome to episode 3 of our EdTech training course. As you can see, I do have notes up. These are my show notes, but this is just to keep me organized. As you guys know, I do podcast episodes, which are audio only, and then I do these YouTube episodes because I know that a lot of people, especially for these topics, need to see visual components. They need to see me actually doing the stuff that I talk about. And so this episode is starting to get into the meat of our course. The first couple episodes, if you were watching or you were listening, you would know that they were kind of basic. It was more informative than anything. I slightly started pushing you guys towards learning about some of these apps yourselves. Some of you have done a fantastic job at brainstorming how to use Google programs in your classrooms right now. But now we're getting to the point of the course where I will be showing tutorials. I will be showing how to do things. Now, normally I would break up videos into segments. So I would show you how to do one specific thing with Google Drive and do a 5-minute video, but that would just be a lot of different videos, which I will get to later on, like just to put out for your own edification. But for this course, some of these videos are going to be a little bit lengthy, as you've already noticed, and that's because it's a little bit easier for me to keep them as one video that's continuous and have you guys be the ones to stop it if you need to stop it. Go back if you need to go back. Again, that's the great thing about asynchronous learning, just like what we were offering to our students. And so don't be afraid to pause the video at any time and come back to it another day. Don't be afraid to split it up the way that you want to split it up. Don't be afraid to fast forward. You can change the settings options in YouTube to speed up the rate at which the video is going. It might make my voice sound kind of fast, but you can do that, and a 40-minute video can end up being truncated to a 30-minute video or even a 20-minute video, depending on your playback speed. So don't be afraid to do that. There's no harm in it. I do it a lot for YouTube videos as well. So today we're getting into Google Drive. It is the foundation of all other Google programs that we will talk about. Some of you probably know about it. Others of you probably barely use it. It's kind of been mixed in talking with you guys. Some of you kind of know it's there but don't know what it's for. Others of you actually have a lot of stuff in your Google Drive that you never even knew about. And there's others of you that maybe use it for some of its basic functions, but for the most part, you're still storing everything on your computer. So I'm going to try to persuade you to start using Google Drive a little bit more. And so as we go through this lesson, I will be showing you how to do a lot of this stuff as well. Now, at its basic function, like we need to get down to what is Google Drive. And there's 3 components to this that I would say. Number 1, it's online cloud storage. Now, if you're unsure what that is, think of it like your computer hard drive, but completely digital. What this means, and I can show you right here, this is my Google Drive. Here's all my folders. I have some recent documents, and I have a lot of files down here as well. These are lesson plans. These are files that I work on. These are notes. These are slideshows. All of these Google programs get stored here automatically or by me putting them in there. You could have PDF documents. You could have Word documents. Doesn't matter. Videos. They're all stored in my Google Drive. Now, Google Drive is cloud storage, but what that means is I don't have to save any of this stuff to my actual desktop. I don't need to waste my RAM storage on my laptop by saving lesson plans. I can put it in Google Drive. I don't need to use a USB stick anymore. I haven't used a USB stick in a long time. I don't need to use an external hard drive. I don't need to use a floppy disk. Now, I'm young, but I know what a floppy disk is. When I first took computer class in school, I had to use a floppy disk, but then we quickly moved to USB hard drives by the time I was in high school. And if you guys are getting mad at me for noticing how young I am, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to be helpful here. But the point here being, those days are kind of done. Now, USB drives are still great. External hard drives still great. You could still use that stuff as backups, but I'll give you a scenario that actually happened. I forget who it was, but there was one day a couple years ago that somebody came into the office and they were frantic because they had to come up with lesson plans spur of the moment because they left their computer at home. And they had their lesson plans there. They had all their activities of what they were going to do and print out there. And so they had to kind of go to their backup folder in their classroom. Now, you fast forward a little bit, the same thing happened to me where I grabbed the wrong bag one day. And I didn't have my computer, but I had everything saved to my Google Drive. So all I needed to do was ask somebody else if I could use their computer to log into my account and then print everything out. Now, yes, you could do that with a USB stick, but what if you forget the USB? Right? I'd rather have Google Drive, which I could also download on my phone. So there's a lot of benefits to Google Drive here. And it just means that when you boil it down, Google Drive helps with security and access. It means that your files are always going to be online and you can access them from anywhere and from any device, which is amazing because I don't have to worry about losing things on my computer. When I was in college, I remember my laptop actually completely crashed and I couldn't use it anymore. All of my files were gone. And like an idiot, I didn't back anything up. But at the time, Google Drive was kind of fairly new. We weren't using it. It's not as popular as it is today. And I lost a lot of documents that I'll never get back. Yes, I should have backed it up into an external hard drive or a USB stick, but I didn't. A lot of us don't. And I lost everything. Right now, if your computer where you have a lot of stuff on, or your laptop were to like crash and burn and explode, would you lose a lot of stuff? I would probably bet yes, a lot of you would. What about that hard drive that you carry around or the USB stick that's coveted to you because it has everything from years? What if you lost that? Would you have to start from scratch? Well, with Google Drive, you don't have to. It's very safe and secure. You have security and you have access. Now, with a teacher account, one thing that does show up on the exam somewhat frequently is you need to know that teachers get unlimited storage space, right there in caps, unlimited storage space. It will never run out. But again, make sure you back up all your files, as I've said in a previous episode, because when you no longer work at the school that's offering the free space, you no longer have access to your Google account, which means everything in your Google Drive you no longer have access to. So make sure you back it up. Some of you were asking me questions about this. You can use a program called Google Takeout. Play around with that. I've never had to use it, but I hear good things. It's just a way of transferring all your data from one account to another. But lastly, know that Google Drive is the hub for all other Google programs. It's backed up, everything. Every program is backed up and even created through Google Drive. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look in my Google Drive right now, you'll see that even my quick access documents, these are documents that I have accessed recently. You'll see a Google Doc, right? There's the logo. You'll see a Google Site. There's the logo. And you'll see 2 Google Slides. All of these are actually backed up and created through Google Drive. Even if I go straight into Google Slides, I'm really still using Google Drive. Google Drive is the parent of all of these things. These programs are merely the children. Now, you could also create documents straight from Google Drive, which I recommend you knowing. In the upper left-hand corner, if you hit the plus sign, you'll see that you have some different options. Upload folder, upload files, or creating Google Docs, Sheets, and you can create a blank document. And boom, it's going to create it right there. So that's what I mean by that. It is the hub that holds everything together. So please understand that. All these other programs, Google Docs, Slides, Sheets, Sites, Forms, they are the children of Google Drive. They always will report back to Google Drive, and Google Drive is their home. So please know that. Now, what about the basic functions of Google Drive? Some of you know this and can probably skip forward, right? This is a point in the lesson where if you know how to do all these things, just skip forward or fast forward through it. But the basic functions is to upload and organize files is number 1. And you can do that simply by dragging the files from your computer into this white space here of Google Drive. You can do it by clicking the plus sign in the upper left-hand corner, and then you can hit File, Upload, and it's going to bring up this familiar computer icon, and all of your computer stuff is going to show up here. And then you just search for it. You could search for it on your downloads, your documents, your desktop, wherever you hold your documents on your computer. You go there, you search for it. Like I can find a research article right now, right? I got nothing in that folder. What about here? Boom. I'm going to double click that. And now you can see that I'm starting the upload, and it's going to upload it. And now it says that it's there. It is in my Google Drive and I can find it. Now, why didn't it show up here? Well, because this is where I have all my folders and my quick access. But if I wanted to search for the file, I can. I can search in the name. I can put it in a specific folder, which I didn't, which you should for organization. But that's how you kind of upload stuff, and then you can organize it within the folders, right? Everything's about organization here. So if I wanted to find one of these documents, I can put them in any one of these. Like if I wanted to click on this E03 training, I can drag it down, I can right click on it, and I can share it with people, or I can click the move to button, and then it'll allow me to move it to different locations on my Google Drive. So there's multiple ways of kind of organizing your Google Drive. You just got to find what works for you, right? I could go into like my AP literature and composition, and you can see I have different files here, right? And I could hit new file upload, and then it'll go straight into here. I can right click and hit upload files. There's multiple ways that you could upload them, right? You just have to find whatever's easier. I like right clicking. Now, another thing that you can do is create and then organize the files. Like I said, if I'm going into, let's say, AP language folder, and I'm going to go into resources, and I'm going to create one of my own resources, and I want to create it as a Google Doc. I can now, you see where I am. You see up at the top, it says I'm in my drive. Well, where in my drive? I'm in AP Literature and Composition. Well, where in AP Literature and Composition? Resources, right? So now I'm going to hit new. I almost said moo. That would be weird. I'm not a cow. On the left-hand side, I'm going to hit the plus sign. And then I'm going to do file upload. And I'm just going to pick another one. I'll do this article, literacy engagement. You can see that it's starting to upload, and then boom, it already appeared right here. Now, where is it located? My drive, AP Literature and Composition, under resources, right? So you could always kind of backtrack where you are, because if you have a lot of folders, you could kind of get sucked into the black hole of Google Drive. But up at the top, it tells you that I'm in my drive, AP Lit folder, subfolder resources, and it's right there, right? And I'll leave it in there. And then the left-hand side, if I want to go back to my main view, I can hit my drive, and I can go back. So you can upload and organize files, or you can create and organize files. You can, again, if I wanted to go in there, and let's say I didn't want to upload something this time, but I actually wanted to hit new, and I wanted to create a Google Doc, right, from blank document. It's now going to create this Google Doc. I'm going to title it AP Lit Practice, and I'll just say a bunch of nonsense in here, right? You guys can pretend that I'm creating this awesome resource for my students, which is awesome. Now, it automatically saves, but where's it located? Well, remember, I was already in the specific folder when I created it, so that's why, look, I go back, and it's here, right? And if you wanted to check an individual document where it is, you are free to check up at the top to the right of the name. You'll see a star. You'll see also a move button, and if I hit that move, it shows me where it is. It's under resources, and I could kind of backtrack. Well, where? AP Literature. Well, maybe I don't want it in there. Maybe I want it under 9th freshman, right? And then I could just click on that, and I can move it to that folder, right? Boom, moved it, and it's organizing. So there's multiple ways that you can organize things as well, and as you can see, I go back into the folder, and now it's gone. So there is a lot of stuff here that you can do, but these are the basic functions, right? And ultimately, it comes down to organize everything. Google Drive does not work very well if it is not organized. And I could speak from true experiences of my own life, how I love Google Drive, but I don't always use it very well. And so this will go into my 3 organizational tips that I'll give you for Google Drive. Number 1, you could have general categories and then create subfolders inside of them. As you see here, this account, my work account, I don't organize very well. I have a lot of folders here. Look at all those folders. It is actually really hard for me to find stuff because of this. Now, all of these folders correspond to different Google Classrooms that I was a part of. My own, but also the ones that some of you shared and made me co-teachers. It then shows up for me here, which is why I have a Spanish folder, right? I don't teach Spanish. And that's why I have a math folder. I don't teach math. But because I was a co-teacher in Google Drive, it creates a Google Drive folder for me. I was a co-teacher in Google Classroom, so it creates the Google Drive folder for me. So it gets pretty messy. But let's say I wanted to start out with something that looks more like yours. I'm going to go into one of my other accounts. I'll go into let's go with my graduate school account, which is also a Google School. I'm going to go into my Google Drive, and you're going to see some quick access. These are homework assignments that I was working on. These are some of the files that I have down below. But as you can see, I only have 2 folders here, and I'm going to start organizing this. So I'm in a class that's an educational research class, and I have some work that I should start organizing into those folders. So what am I going to do? Well, I need to create a new folder, right? Maybe a general category one. So maybe I'm just going to create one. I'm going to create a folder, left-hand side. I get to name it. Let's just say I wanted to name the category homework. Boom. I'm going to create it homework. I now created a folder right here. Now, inside of that folder, there's nothing right now, but I can put stuff in there, right? I can right-click and upload some files, or I can go back into my Google Drive and say, well, you know what? This EDU 713 document, that was a homework assignment. So I'm going to right-click on that, and I'm going to go down to Move To, and I'm going to direct it where it should go. So My Drive, click on that, click on the little arrow. Then it's going to come up into My Drive. I see my folders. Well, I want to move it to homework, so then I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to click Move Here. And now it's going to move it to homework. And so if I go into that folder, I can now see it's there. But within a folder, you could create subfolders. So let's say I want to organize this homework folder into my actual classes. Well, then I might need to say EDU 713, and I'm going to create that. And it's going to create a folder within a folder. And then right here, all I have to do is click on this and drag it over to make sure it gets into my EDU 713. And again, quick quiz. How can I find where I'm located in my Google Drive? Like if you had to call somebody up and say, help, I'm lost in my Google Drive. Where am I? Again, look right up at the top. Below the search bar, you'll see the first thing that you were in is My Drive. Then you went to Homework. And then you went to EDU 713, and that's where you are right now. And then if you wanted to create another subfolder, you can. You could create another subfolder within EDU 713, and maybe you wanted to name it short assignments, right? Maybe these are things that aren't worth many points, and I'm creating a subfolder here. And you know what? I don't want to just leave this document in homework. I want to further it into short assignments. And so I'm going to move it in there. Then I'm going to click in there. And now where am I? Well, My Drive, Homework, EDU 713, short assignments. So I think you guys get the point. That's the basic function in order to organize. And there's multiple ways that you can do this. I'm going to go back into my messier one because as you can tell here, I didn't do a good job organizing this specific Google Drive. So I might need to create some different categories, right? In order to fix this, maybe I would create a new folder and call it Google Classroom. And then I can start moving all these other Google Classroom folders into that one. Right? So let's say Freshly Lit, that was a Google Classroom folder. So I'm going to move that over. I had a fake class, a testing class that I did. I'm going to move that into the folder. Right? I can move all these fake classes into my Google Classroom folder. So that is important to know. You could have general categories and then create subfolders inside of them. I am confident that there are a lot of you that will be much better at organizing stuff than me. I'm still learning myself. Now, another thing that you can do is color coordinate the files. Now, some of you are probably getting very happy at the notion of color coordinating. As you can see, I don't really do that, but I do have a couple ones. As you can tell, when I just created that Google Classroom folder, I don't even know where it went because I have too many folders and they're all gray, right? I can know that it's in alphabetical order, so boom, here it is, Google Classroom. But it should be easier than that. If you click on any one of your folders and you want to give it a color, like I have here, the shared folders, that's where we put all of our lesson plans. I needed it to stand out because I was using it a lot, right? So I made it red. So what I'm going to do to create a color for a folder is I'm just going to click on it once. Don't double click because then it'll actually enter into it. I'm going to click on it once. I'm going to right click when it's highlighted, and if you take a look down towards the bottom, it is change color. And then you have a bunch of different options. Now, you don't have a lot of options, but you have some. And I might even recommend don't exceed this number. Like if you have a lot of folders, try to create more generic categories and then create subfolders. The point here being, you shouldn't have more folders than you do colors. So that way it's easier to see. And gray is one of the colors too. So however many this is, take account. Obviously, I broke this rule, but that's because I was a part of a lot of Google Classrooms recently and kind of got overwhelmed and then didn't take a look at it. So I have to do some summer cleaning here. But I'm going to go ahead and I'll make this one green. And as you can see, it changed the color here. Very helpful, because now when I go into it, if I'm like, oh man, this Google Classroom folder, I know that I need to move this 6th grade science into that Google Classroom. But where's Google Classroom? Well, I have this, so I'm going to drag it down. Oh, it's green, right? So it's much easier for me to find. So it is helpful. Again, you need to do good at organizing this stuff. So you can color coordinate stuff, but another thing that you can do, as you can see here, I have an emoji. I actually have a poop emoji right there. And if you can't tell that it's poop, well, then you haven't been living life. But anyway, the way that you do that is you just have to find somewhere to copy and paste emojis. And I'm going to offer 2 different ways. One way is just by Google searching emojis, right? You put it in a Google search, and there's a website, getomoji.com, Emojipedia. You could probably choose any of these. I'll go to getomoji.com, and you can copy and paste any emoji that you want. You don't need a specific app. So let's say that I wanted the nerd, right? I'm going to just copy it like I would anything else. I'm going to go back into my Google Drive, and I'm going to say that those that like math are nerds. So this 6th grade math class, I'm going to right click on, and then I'm going to go to rename. And I could still leave it as 6th grade math, but now I want that nerd emoji. So I'm just going to right click and paste. And as you can see, it gets in there. You can't just type out the emoji. You actually have to copy and paste it. And then I'm going to hit OK. And then there it is. Now, emojis are helpful because they give another visual component to help you find things easier. Now, the second option of obtaining emojis is through an add-on that is up at the top here, Emoji Keyboard. Now, how do you get these add-ons? We're going to go further in depth in another episode of our course into getting add-ons, but it's through the Chrome store. So if you were to Google search add-ons, you will go to the Chrome store, Chrome Web Store, right? You go ahead, you go in there, you could search the store. So I'm going to go ahead and just type in emoji and see what comes up here. And as you can see, emoji unicorn wallpaper, that's probably not what I want. But emoji keyboard, maybe I want to add that to Chrome, or maybe this emoji keyboard, right? There's a bunch of different ones. Let's say I go into this one, and if I were to add it to Chrome, it will put it up at the top for me, and it'll be able to be utilized, because as you can see, all I have to do is click on the icon up at the top, and I could copy any one of these, and it makes it easier. But again, you could also just go to getomoji.com and do it that way. Now, the good thing about this is there's sometimes where I hate that Google Drive is in alphabetical order. Like, I wish I could just drag these into whatever order I want. I really hope that they update Google Drive to allow for that, because I want more autonomy. I don't want Google Drive to tell me how to organize stuff. So right now, the way that it's organized is alphabetical A to Z or Z to A. And as you can see, to the right-hand side of the folders, there's this name icon. And if I click that, I can either organize it by name, by last modified by me, or last opened by me, or I could click on this arrow and you can reverse the order of direction. So right now I have it from A to Z, but remember, numbers and symbols actually go towards the top. They supersede A's. So if I click in reverse order, you're going to see that all that stuff kind of gets pushed to the bottom, right? I like the A to Z instead of the Z to A. I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to put it back. One reason why I use emojis, for instance, like you'll see my AP Lit and Comp, I put the poop emoji there because I was going into that folder a lot for a while. And I didn't like that AP Lit came after all of the numbers. And so I had to go kind of towards the middle where like the American Lit is to find the A. So it was getting really frustrating for me. So what I did is I put the poop emoji there because the emojis supersede A's and they supersede numbers. So if you are trying to kind of hack your organization, use emojis and you can kind of help yourself out there. I don't know how they organize multiple emojis. Don't know how that happens. It might be by modification, like whatever was last modified goes first. I don't know. You're going to have to play around with it, but it is a little bit of a hack there. Now, thirdly, for your organizational tip, just choose the layout that works best for you. Again, you can do A to Z or Z to A. Again, that's on the right-hand side of the folders. You'll see name, and then you'll see the arrows. But another thing that you can do, maybe you're sitting there wondering, like, wait a minute. This whole time I'm confused because yours are in rows and columns, but mine are just in one straight row. It's just a list. Well, you have two options, right? And in the right-hand corner, you'll see kind of your icon, and you'll see to the right little I for information. That's your activity and details. To the left of that I, you'll see a button. It'll either say Graphical or List View. If you have the Graphical, which is the rows and columns, if yours looks like mine right now, then the button that you have is List View. If yours doesn't look like mine, the button that you have is Graphical, and I'll show you why. I'm going to go ahead and click List View, and you're going to see it changes now to where I have a list. And one thing that's helpful about this is it does tell you when it was last opened. So, and it tells you who owns it. Like if I scroll down, I own all of these, but then when we get down to the CCS shared folder, CCS administrators actually own it. And I can see when it was last opened by me. And I can see when all of these folders have been relevant to me because of when they were last opened. And again, I can then sort from last opened, right? I can sort them from last opened by me. And now I have all of my newer relevant stuff there. So maybe that's the way that you want to organize it. Point being, there's multiple ways to do this. And there's multiple ways to make it easier for your life. You just have to play around with it and find. For the longest time, honestly, I've done this grid view, and I think I might actually change it. I might change it to the list once I clean everything up a little bit more, because the good thing about that is I really like that I can go to all of my last open ones and kind of sort by last opened and sort it that way. So all the stuff that I know that I'm accessing this month are going to be up at the top, which is great. So definitely organize stuff. You need to know where to find stuff because on the Google certification exam, it asks you to find stuff. It'll ask you to create stuff too, but it also says, hey, you're a teacher in this type of school. You just created a document for a lesson plan. You need to find it so that you can work on it. And if you can't find it in your Google Drive, there's going to be a problem. Now, it's not going to be in your personal Google Drive. They're going to put it in a fake Google Drive for you, and you're going to be a fake person with a fake account. But still, you need to know how to find stuff. Now, the more advanced functions get a little bit more fun, and up to this point, if you already knew everything that I talked about, I apologize, but hopefully you fast-forwarded or you just skipped it, which is fine. That's the good stuff about things being on YouTube. Now, two advanced features are sharing and priority workspaces. Now, I said in episode 1 that the whole entire point of Google's programs and Google's certified education program and Google trainers is to increase efficiency and organization and collaboration. And I said that if you come across multiple choice answers on the exam and the answer choices are either collaboration or organization, pick them because that's what it's for. Now, what do I mean by collaboration? Well, what I mean is Google Drive doesn't have to be just for you. As you can see here, the owners, like our CCS shared folders, we have a lot of different stuff in there from lesson plans that we're supposed to upload to sometimes resources. But what I can do right now, let's say my AP Literature and Composition folder, if I wanted to share that with another teacher, I can. I could go ahead and click, or right-click, I should say, on the folder, and then hit Share, and then it'll bring up the familiar sharing options that you know for every single document. I can add a specific person by typing in their name. I can restrict access to only our domain, or I can give anybody access, right? Anyone with the link will be able to view, right? You don't want to give anybody with the link as an editor because that might be crazy because you don't know who will have the link, but I'm fine giving them viewing access. That's actually what we did for some of the summer reading documents or some of the summer work packets. We just uploaded to the website an entire folder because we had a lot of stuff in there, and that's a lot easier. And now parents can go into that folder, whether or not they have a Google account, and see everything. Now I'm going to move this one back to only Calvary Christian School can, and I'm the only one with the link, so I'm the only one that can access. But sharing is really important in Google Drive because sharing allows you to collaborate with others. I mean, imagine creating a folder for your subject matter with other subject matter teachers, and you guys all have your resources in there. So that way you guys can kind of pick and choose what you like from each other. And you guys are helping each other and expanding your search time and your brain power because you're collaborating. Now, if you weren't familiar with sharing in the first place, I highly recommend you get familiar. And again, you don't even just have to right-click. If you like doing things the old-fashioned way, you'll notice that when something's highlighted up towards the top, you can have a button that says Get Shareable Link, or the person button. The person icon plus the plus always says Sharing with a Person. And then you could just hit that. Or you could hit more options and kind of change things around, change the name, all of that. But again, that's why I like right-clicking. It's a bit of a shortcut, right? I can see all that right there, change the color, move it to a different location, blah, 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 right? Now, individual documents can also be shared. And so you need to understand that across all Google platforms, sharing is the same, right? Whenever you're in a document, like let's say you're in a Google Doc, it works the same with Google Slides, works the same with every program except for Google Forms. Google Forms is slightly different. When we get to it, at that point, I'll talk about it. But on the right-hand side of any Google program is a share button. Now, if it is locked, it means it's private and it's only you can view. It's not shared with anybody. But let me hit that share button, and as you can see, these are the same options that came up when I was trying to share a folder. You have options down below. Well, I mean, your first options are you could input individual email addresses to send it to those specific people. But then down below, you could get a link and then share the link with multiple people, right? Instead of actually sharing through email or notifying them through their Google account. So what I can do down below is I could copy the link right now and I could share it with anybody in Calvary Christian School just by hitting copy link. But let's say I wanted other people to be able to see this. Well, I'm going to click on where it says change link to Calvary Christian School, and I'm going to have a few different options here because now I can just copy a new link or I can reset it, but down below that, there's another drop-down menu. That's what that little arrow that says down means, and I can click on that, and you always have these three options. You can restrict it, which means only people added can open with this link. Now, why would you want to do that? Why not just add people? Well, maybe not everybody has a Google account, or maybe you don't know everybody's email address, or maybe there's just too many people to input, and you'd rather just copy the link and send it or post it onto online or give the link to your phone and then text it out to people. I don't know. But now this means that only people who are actually added, and notice nobody has been added up at the top, right? I'd have to add people, but nobody has. Only people added would be able to do it. Now, the other option in this drop-down is Calvary Christian School or whatever domain you're a part of, right? Whatever school or organization you're a part of, or anyone with the link. That's the third option. Now, whenever you pick any option, you need to ask yourself, do you want them to be able to change the document, to add things and take away, or do you want them to only be able to view it? You need to know that, because on the right-hand side, you have an option to view, to comment, like people can make comments on it, but can't actually change it, but they could highlight and make comments, or they can be an editor. If they're an editor, they have all the same access that you do, which means they could add bullet points, they can take away stuff, they could highlight things, they can move it around. They could do a lot of different things. Now, how does this work in the classroom? Yes, it's for collaboration amongst teachers, but even in the classroom, maybe you have a document and you want your entire class. Maybe you're working with a small group of like 4 or 5 students and you know that they're not going to like deliberately and maliciously mess with the document. Maybe you give those 4 students access to edit the document and they each have their own spot in the document to write down their answers. I've done that before. Or if they're working in a group and they create their own document and they have to like create a story or something in Google Docs or come up with resources and they're working together, they can all be working on the same document at the same time, which is excellent. That's what Google's about with this stuff, is collaboration. But if you don't want them to be able to do stuff, you only want them to view it, then you would want to leave it as viewer. More often than not, when you're dealing with students and it's your document, you're going to make them a viewer. But if you want them to do like small group activities or it's a smaller group, then you might want them to be editors. Now, if you're familiar with Google Classroom, you'll know that usually Google Classroom allows you to kind of set this setting within Google Classroom. So it does look a little bit different, but those options are always the same. And now notice, because I changed the sharing options up in the right-hand corner, it has a different icon. It's a person and the link, because it's saying anyone with the link, the paperclip, can access, and there's no sign-in required, right? But if I wanted to change it and I wanted to restrict it, I could go back in and I can change it to be only Calvary Christian School, and then I can hit done and it's updated. And now look, the icon changed and it's a little building icon saying anybody in my organization with the link can view. And if you hover over that blue share button, it tells you right there. Notice that highlight comes up. People at Calvary Christian School with the link. People who have the link can access. They can't edit, but they can access, right? So that is important to know with that. All those options. Sharing is really important because you need to understand sharing options now, because it comes into play with Google Slides. It comes into play with Google Docs. It comes into play with Google Sheets. It comes into play with even YouTube. You need to understand sharing. Now, the other cool advanced feature is Priority Workspace. When you log into your Google Drive, on the left-hand side, you have all these different options. You have New, Priority, My Drive, Shared Drives, Shared with Me, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to get into all these, but up at the top, I want you to click on Priority. This is something that not a lot of people use, and as you can see, I haven't even been using it. But I'm definitely going to start. This is something fairly new even to me, so I wanted to talk about it because it's pretty cool. You could create a workspace. Now, these folders, these files up at the top, they're assuming that I want to do stuff with them because I opened them recently. These are all my most recent documents that I opened, all 4, and if I scroll through, it goes through even more, because these are all the ones that I've even opened during this video or I've worked with. But I can create a workspace. So I could go down here and I could hit Create Workspace, and let's say I know that every day I work on pretty much the same documents, but it takes a while for me to get them all open because I have to go into Google Drive, I have to find them in the folder, or I have to go into the program that it's in, like Google Docs, and then find it and then open. And normally the way that we work is it's not one document at a time. Normally we'll have like Google Docs open, we'll have a Google Slide open for our class lecture presentation, maybe we'll have Google Forms open, maybe we'll have a PDF open, and we'll have 4 or 5 different things that we're working on simultaneously. So let's say that I'm doing that for this EdTech training course. So I'm going to create a workspace called EdTech Training Course, and I'm going to go ahead and hit Create. And now what it's doing is it's asking me if I want to add some files, and it's recommending one. That's actually a good recommendation. So I'm going to click on that because this is my show notes for today, and I'm going to add the selected files, and I'm going to hit Done for now. And as you can see, it creates this little bubble, and it has that one document. But I'm going to add some more before I explain to it. So maybe I want some other documents. So I'm going to go ahead and view the workspace. I'm going to hit Add Files, and I'm going to bring up some of the most recent. It always does that, most recent. And maybe I'll add in episode 2 from what we did. Maybe I'll go down and add in a sample site. Maybe I'll go down and episode 2.5. Sean Kenny asked me a question, so I want to add that because I'm working on that. And then I'm going to insert those 4 files and then hit Done. And as you can see, all those files are now right here. So what? What's the purpose? What does this do? It saves me a lot of time, because if these are stuff that I open on a daily basis to work on for the next month or even all year long, and normally I'm in my drive and I have to go and open them individually or through the quick access and open them. Now instead, I just go to Priority and I can see, oh, I'm working on EdTech Training Course today. Here's all the stuff that I always use. Or maybe you have the same documents that you work on every day in your class for, let's just say it's ELA grade 7. Right, I'm going to create that workspace, and you could imagine now if you wanted to add files, let's say that you have an attendance spreadsheet that you use every time you have class, you add that file. Let's say that you have discussion questions for a book that you ask every day in class, add that file. Let's say that you have a PDF document that you always use every day in class or most classes, go ahead and add that. Right? And then that way you can access all of your frequented files for that workspace. So this really saves you time. So that is definitely an advanced feature. I highly recommend you start doing it if you know you're going to be working on something a lot and you want to kind of organize stuff in this way. Now, you can have as many workspaces as you want. You just have to keep hitting create. But at any point, if you want to hide something or remove it, you just click on the 3 dots and then you can hit hide or remove, and you could rename it at any point. So I'm going to go ahead and hide ELA grade 7. So I'm going to click the 3 dots, hide, and now the workspace is hidden. Where did it go? Where did it go? Down at the bottom, you see hidden workspaces. I could just click that down, and then now I see it. That's just to be more minimalistic. So that's just to help us in our efficiency and in our organization. That's really the purpose of this. Now, moving on, I know this is a lot, but again, that's why you can pause, you could rewind, you could fast forward, you could do all that. Now, we covered some of the advanced functions, but we also, again, none of this matters if we can't find stuff. And so what I would say is, number 1, definitely never leave documents as untitled, because that's how you lose things. Right? And this is usually what happens with my students as well. And I'm guilty of it too. If there's a document that I don't really care about, I leave it untitled. But there's been times where I accidentally forgot to title something and it's really hard to find. So I'm going to go into my drive. Let's pretend this is brand new. I want to create let's say I want to create a new Google Sheet this time. And I'm going to go ahead. I hit new, Google Sheet, blank spreadsheet. And now it's going to open up a spreadsheet. Notice in the top left-hand corner, by default, the title is Untitled Spreadsheet. Now, the problem there is we went over basic search functions before, or really we're going to, but you can search for stuff in folders, but if it's something untitled, how are you going to find it? It's really difficult. I've had this be a really big problem for students. I had a student once who had something untitled for a paper, and then they couldn't find it. They ended up spending quite a while looking for it, and they still couldn't find it. They started working on doing the paper all over again, and then eventually was able to find their old paper, but at that point it was late. So it's really difficult when things are untitled. By default, it's untitled. All you need to do is click in it and then delete the untitled and name it whatever you want. So practice sheet 1. Now, it's helpful when you name things because in Google Drive, there's a search feature. So if I put in practice sheet 1, I know that anything with those words is going to come. And notice at the top, this fits perfectly. Practice sheet 1, it is a spreadsheet. Right? So I'm able to find it. But look what happens. And this is what I recommend all of you do right now as something fun. If you've used Google Drive quite a bit, just type in untitled document. Spelt it wrong. Untitled document. I guarantee you it's a lot for me. Look at all the untitled documents, right? And I even have untitled documents from students of work that they never titled, which is really annoying, right? So I'm going to go through and I'm going to delete a bunch of that eventually, but you do not want things to be untitled. Now, how do you actually go about finding stuff, though? Well, you could go into the folders and look for them. Like I said, you can find your folder. If you know you're looking for something for AP Lit, I can double click in there and I could look around for whatever I need. That's one way. A second way is if you know it's in a workspace, you can go there, right? That's a little bit easier. I go into priority on the left-hand side. I know, oh, EdTech training course, that's what I'm working on. Oh, there's it. So it narrows the scope a little bit more. That's another way. You could use the basic search like I just showed before. I can title something, right? AP Lit. But as you can see, there's a lot of stuff that might be titled AP Lit. And so it does narrow the scope a little bit. And if you don't remember the name exactly, it might not even come up. Or you might have forgotten the name completely. So it still might not come up. It might not be helpful. Or you could use the advanced search function. Now, the advanced search function is up at the top. When you click in Search in Drive, instead of writing anything, just click in it, or you can do this drop down, right? But I like clicking in it. You can notice that sometimes it's a double click. You can kind of sort by people. You can sort by file type, or you can hit advanced search. Another way is if it's not working when you're clicking in it, then just go all the way to the right, click this little search options button. It's the inverted triangle. Go ahead and click that. Now, you could search by file type. So let's say I click on that drop down. These are all the different file types. I want to search specifically for PDFs. And I know that the owner here, I can search for owner. I can search a specific person. So if I know that one of you shared a PDF with me, I can search your name. But let's say it's owned by me. Location, you can by default leave anywhere. Or if you have a really large file, you could go ahead into your Google Drive, and if you have large folders or a lot of folders, you could just select, right? So you could select. I'm going to leave it as anywhere. If something was in the trash, you can search there too. Date modify. This is really helpful because if you click that, I can say, okay, well, I need you to find this document that is a PDF that has been in the last 90 days. Now, item name, if you type in any type of term that matches part of the file name, it'll come up. Or if it has the words in the document, anything like that. I'm going to actually leave that stuff blank because I don't have anything in mind that I want to search. But I'm going to go ahead and search and see what comes up. Now, here I go. Here are all the PDF documents that have been owned by me in the last 30 days. Or shared with me, and I'm kind of the owner or last modifier, right? So that is the advanced search feature. Because as you can see up at the top, it now puts in the search after and then the dates, owner, me, type PDF. You could do that manually if you want to, but it's much easier to hit the drop down. Let's say now I want to do, let's say a presentation. I want to search for a presentation, and I don't want the owner to be me. I want the owner to be anybody. I don't know where specifically to look for it because I lost it. And date modified, I know it was within the last 7 days. And I'm going to go ahead and hit search, and I'm going to see what comes up. Now it narrowed it, right? And what I was able to find is some of my own stuff, but also I found Aaron's app brainstorm. I found brainstorm from Linda and Patricia, Kira, and Lori as well. So you could find stuff from your students this way, especially if you use Google Classroom. So advanced search features are very important. Now, that's why teachers need a no drive. It's all about organization and collaboration. Now, Google Classroom automatically creates class folders where all student work goes, which is why you see my Google Drive has a lot of Google Classroom names, right? A lot of them that aren't even mine because I was added as a co-teacher. But if I go into some of these folders, they would typically have all of the assignments. So this was my 10th grade English class. When I go into it, here's all of my assignments that I created. And I know that because they're also numbered, right? Which is also another reason why you should number your stuff in Google Classroom, because then this is how it'll show up in order. And I can go in and I can click on these folders and open them and see all my students' work. So Google Drive is awesome, especially if you use Google Classroom. Google Drive's awesome even if you don't use Google Classroom. It's just really helpful to find stuff. It's unlimited storage. It helps with collaboration. It helps with efficiency and organization. Now, as for some application, what I will say is, as kind of like an encouragement to you guys, what I really want you guys to try to do is collaborate with some staff. Maybe you teach the same grade level, or maybe same subject. Like if you are a history teacher, maybe you want to create a folder of history resources for each time period. So what you can do in your Google Drive, and I'll use a cleaner one to show you, is you can hit new folder. You could create that folder. Let's just say history. I'm going to hit create. And then within that folder, I'm going to create some subfolders, right? I'm going to hit new folder again, and maybe I want to do World War II, right? And I name that a folder, and you could go in and create as many subfolders as you want. But imagine now for this folder, this history folder, you share it with the other history teachers. And whenever you guys come across documents, you put them in this shared folder so that everybody can benefit. Maybe when you create lesson plans for specific topics, you put them in these folders so that everybody can benefit. Right? And you could share this folder multiple ways. As you can see here, if you ask yourself our question again, where am I located in Google Drive? Well, up at the top, My Drive, History folder. Great. If I clicked on that history folder, I can now hit the share button and I could share it with anybody that I want to. Right? And then they can have editing access to where they upload documents as well. That's exactly what our CCS shared folder is. Right? If we go into our drive and we go to the CCS shared folder, which I could find because it's red, and I click in it, it has a subfolder academic and it has all of these grade levels, right? And I could go into them and I can see lesson plans, I could see resources. It's a shared folder. Now you could also know when something's actually shared because you'll see a little person icon. I don't know if you can see it from your perspective, but if you were to zoom in here, these folders that are actually shared either with your class through Google Classroom or with others has a little person icon next to it, and that tells you that it is a shared folder. So definitely collaborate with some staff of like-minded individuals. You could even do it for this class with whoever you've been partnered with or you have been partnering for the last week in the app brainstorming. Maybe you create a folder of EdTech resources for your ideas, and you then share that folder with another person, and you guys start adding stuff to that folder. It's amazing what you can do with this. Now, another idea is you could actually share an entire folder of extra practice work with all your parents or your students. So if you have parents who are constantly like, oh, you know what, my kid's not being challenged enough, right, go figure, then I want you to give them extra work during the summer. I want you to give them extra work that they could work on. What can they do? Well, maybe you already have a pre-planned folder that you then share, and you change the sharing settings to where everybody can access, right? So again, let's say it's my AP Literature. I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to go ahead and hit share, and I'm going to change it from where everybody from Calvary Christian School can view, and I'm going to change it to I'm going to hit that drop down to anyone with the link, and I'm going to make sure that all they can do is view, which means they could see any of the files in there, but they cannot edit them. They cannot delete them from me, but they can see them, they can open them, and they could download them, right? So maybe you have extra work, or maybe you have parent resources that you want them to be able to access. You can feel free to make it a shared folder and give them the link to the folder, or send it specifically to them, which would be very, very helpful. So you could share an entire folder with them, and it's really helpful. It really is. It's been helpful for me. It's what we did for some of the summer work. Again, like I said, I created a folder of summer work, and it's there. People have access to it through the website. They could click on it, and even if they don't have a Google account, they can see everything in it because anybody has access. They cannot delete stuff, but they can certainly see stuff. Another thing that you can do for something that's more applicable is you could store all your student work in there. Whenever you receive stuff, whether or not you're using Google Classroom, you can store it. Google Classroom just allows you to do it automatically. And guess what? When parent and teacher conferences come and you know that a parent is walking up to you, you can very quickly access their child's work by searching their name or go into whatever folder you have it in and pull up a specific assignment and say, hey, just wanted to show you how great Johnny did on this assignment. It was awesome. So it can really change your I'm not going to say life because that sounds corny, but it can certainly help your teaching. It can certainly help you be more organized, which is really what we want to do to be more efficient and to collaborate more. So in closing, if you're struggling with Google Drive and you're a person like me with a lot of folders, don't worry, I'm right there with you, especially after COVID. I mean, a lot of these folders are just other people's classes that I was invited to that I have to just go in and archive or delete and kind of make a sense of this mess, right? Or maybe you're a person that has never really used Google Drive. You'll use Google Docs and Slides, but you didn't even know that it all gets stored in Google Drive. Well, start using it because it is helpful. And especially if you're a teacher that uses Google Classroom, you should understand and be using Google Drive. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I know it might be somewhat lengthy, but again, fast forward, rewind, go back, do whatever you want to do. I just want to give you guys more information than not, because if you understand Google Drive, it's much easier to understand all these other apps. So let me know if you have any questions. Again, what I want you guys to try to do for these next handful of days is play around with Google Drive, organize it the way that you want, try color coordinating stuff, try emojis, try workspaces, do all this stuff so that way you could be more efficient. And don't forget see, it's been speaking too long. Don't forget the collaboration part. Share a folder with somebody that's like-minded, somebody maybe in your same grade level, somebody. If you're like an aide in the classroom for a teacher, that's perfect. Share folders with each other so you can see lesson plans as they're created, or just share a folder for your EdTech resources and share it with everybody else that you know is in the class and see what you guys are able to collaborate on and come up with. So as always, let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be seeing you guys online at another time.